this is a great reminder to have a first aid kit at home and have some things pulled together, because invariably something happens. Happy New Year. I'm Dr. Ruth Roberts, the original holistic pet health coach. And with me today is Elena Grafton, who is a certified holistic pet health coach, one of the early adapters in the program. And Elena, how did you just told me you've got to go back to teaching shortly, so this is not your full-time gig as yet, but how did you get interested in the program?
Yeah, so I got interested in the program through having my rescue dog, Charlotte, and starting off with conventional vets and some of the treatments that were being prescribed and recommendations, and seeing that some things weren't going quite as they said they would, or I wasn't seeing the same benefits that I thought I would. So I started seeking out other alternatives, and I ended up finding you actually through Rachel Fusaro's channel. I had seen, so I was starting to question a lot about vaccinations and preventatives and things like that. And I saw the great interview you gave. So I suggest people watch it. And that got me really interested. I went from there.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, because when you started, you had a lot of questions about, is this right or is that right? And it's interesting because a lot of what conventional veterinarians say, they say, but the science actually says something different. So good on you for actually questioning what's what, and is it really the truth? But in the process of doing that, I think you did the course, you've done a lot of digging on your own, but do you think you could share some insights on how much of a difference fresh food makes for pets, and how it could contribute to their overall well-being?
Yeah, sure. So I feel like I've also, to go back a little bit, I've also really been questioning this kind of for a while. So when I was growing up, dogs were a huge part of my life. We had 3 dogs throughout my childhood, and they all ate kibble. I remember one of them ate Moist and Meaty. That was the brand that she ate. And that dog ended up developing Cushing's disease. Yeah, Moist and Meaty. She ended up developing Cushing's disease. She was always overweight. And I remember coming across this book when I was a teenager by, I think, Stanley Coren, called How Dogs Think. And in the book, he talks about some homemade dog recipes. And I'm reading this like 17 years old or something. And I'm like, what? Dogs can eat people food? I just had no idea. But it really blew my mind. And I always remembered it, just always thought about it. And it just makes so much sense now. We would never recommend that people eat Cheerios every day, right? That we would get all our nutrition from just eating Cheerios. It just makes so much sense. And I've seen so many benefits in my own dog, people around me that I've really been able to convert over to trying at least kibble toppers and things like that, like blueberries or broccoli or some sardines and water. Even if you can't go, you maybe expense wise, you can't go there yet. And then I love how you have your crock pet diet, because it really allows people to buy the ingredients that they can afford and create a home cooked diet at home. And I think the best example I can think of how fresh food really helps, look at that dog Bobby, who just passed away recently in Portugal. I think he was 31 years old. He ate what the owners ate. They used to wash off the seasonings for him, and he lived to 31 years old.
Exactly. And finally, actually, when I met Rodney Habib in October, what he told me is he was eating boiled food all of his life, not raw foods. And the Portuguese diet is about 17% animal protein, so not a meat heavy diet.
Interesting, yeah. And I know you talked about too that we think that raw food, that's how wolves eat, and that dogs should be the same. But you've talked about how dogs have been eating cooked food with humans for so many years. So I think that's another thing for some people that are thinking that raw food is the way to go. And I'm not saying that I'm sure there are some people that believe in that, but I do think any kind of fresh food is going to be better than kibble and processed food.
Amen. Amen. I think that's the real deal, is that if you're feeding processed food all the time, it just is not going to end well for the vast majority of us. Now, some folks are genetic freaks like my father-in-law, who's Sicilian, and he lived to be 94 eating junk food and being diabetic, but he's certainly not and I think one of the dogs on the oldest lived dogs list is Spike in South Carolina, and Spike literally ate the standard American diet. He ate a lot of hamburgers and hot dogs. So again, I think he lived to be 22, but I think he's more the genetic freak side.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody has their own standard, like a bucket for how much it can take before it spills over.
That's a great way to put it. Cool. So what are some of the more common things that you think many pet parents can manage at home or use at-home remedies to help solve?
Sure. So one home remedy that I'm going to talk about that I'm very passionate about is calendula. I don't know if you've heard of it before. I'm sure you have, but I don't know if people out there have heard of it. So calendula, actually, it's a flower. It comes from the marigold. It is the marigold flower, and you can buy like bags of it. People brew it for a tea. And it actually has, I wrote some of this down to remember, it has antifungal, antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, wound healing properties, antiseptic. It's really in that same category as lavender and chamomile, but I feel like it's not as well known. You can use it in terms of if your dog has a wound, or the way I used it, and the way I actually really discovered it was through my dog having some eye allergies. So in the spring, she had some mucus and drainage coming from her eyes. And at the time, I thought, okay, maybe this is, at first I thought it could be because it was only coming out of one eye at first. And I thought maybe she has conjunctivitis. She had played with some other dogs. I thought maybe something like that's going on. And then it spread to the other eye. I did take her to a conventional vet at the time, and they prescribed oral eye drop steroids, temporary relief, and then it just came back. So I'm like, okay, this is allergies. So I was like, I'm not going to go back, and I don't want her on Apoquel or something like that. What can I do? And I was searching all kinds of different things, and I came up with this site from Australia, I believe it was, a holistic remedy, and it was saying to use a calendula eye compress. So basically just brewed the tea and soaked it up into, you could use cotton or like I used like a wet cloth, and just leave it on there if your dog will tolerate it. That's another thing. I worked a lot with my dog on cooperative care. I think she sometimes probably thinks I'm her science experiment, but I did that. And literally in a couple of days, I started to see a difference just doing that a few times a day. And then I've been doing it more for maintenance now. And I stopped a little bit, and it was funny because in the fall, the allergy thing happened again. So also I live in Massachusetts, so there's ragweed pollen. Started again with the calendula, and it got better. So I don't know. I really think it's a miracle. Calendula, I think it's
That's amazing.
It really does work. I mean, they even think giving it, if you look it up, calendula, you'll find different sites that say it's also good for cats. So it's not just dogs. That it can also help with maybe bacteria growing in the gut, so they can actually eat. I believe it's about like a couple tablespoons per 20 pounds of body weight. And they could eat some of it in their food. It can help with bacteria growing in the gut, urinary tract infections. It's actually in some diaper rashes. So that's where some people might know it.
You can buy diaper rash cream. Oh, that's cool.
Diaper rash cream. You can buy calendula salves. I've actually used it myself. I had one for a cut that I had that was being cool. I wanted to heal a little faster on my finger.
Right on. And it's really interesting. The other thing that comes in this plant is lutein, and which is really quite important in eye health. But yeah, that's cool. I either have forgotten or didn't remember this type of marigold. I just remember the big bulby orange ones, but yeah, that's amazing. So this sounds like it's your favorite plant.
Oh yeah, I have to start growing it. I don't really have a green thumb, but I'm going to try.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, some other things.
Yeah,
I wrote down a few notes for myself so I don't forget. So I would say some other things that you could use would be, so oil of oregano. I've tried using that before. My dog had some irritated, like a yeast thing going on her paws. But you have to make sure that if you're using the essential oil, that it's diluted. So it's 1 part of that essential oil to 4 parts. You could use olive oil or coconut oil, so like a carrier oil, and that really helped the redness and the smell go away. So I've used that before for home remedies. I've also gotten a lot of people onto just using coconut oil for brushing teeth instead of using those crazy toothpaste, because they have all kinds of different things. And really it's more the brushing, I feel like, than actually the toothpaste itself, just trying to get some of that buildup off. And I also think garlic, like about a quarter, I believe it's a quarter teaspoon per 20 pounds of body weight in their food, can help with some warding off the fleas and ticks. I've also used that. So those are some of my favorite things. I'm always looking for new ones. So
right on. And just so you're clear, don't y'all freak out now because she said garlic, because garlic really is something that's safe to use at the appropriate dosage. So onions and garlic can also create Heinz body anemia in us if we eat too many, but we'd have to eat something like 10 pounds of onions. Same thing with dogs and cats, though, and the dose you mentioned is exactly correct. So a 50-pound dog could eat an entire clove of garlic every day without any side effects. So right on. And how did you, so you've had pets all of your life, but Charlotte Ann is the dog that really is the one that made you start saying, is that fair? And
Yeah, so I had pets growing up as a kid. This is my first dog as an adult. So I guess as even a teenager, I was really starting to question some of these things, but it's not like I remember like saying to my mom, "Oh, like look at this book, look at these homemade recipes. We should try that." "Oh yeah, sure." And it was one
you
of
go
those
right
things.
on.
Yeah, it's not that she didn't, and it's funny now she'll say, "Oh, we should have done that." But it's not that she didn't agree with it. It was just, I feel like it was something, it's really come into the forefront more now in recent years, especially with vets like yourself, like really starting to teach the public about the fact that yes, dogs can and cats can eat people food, because it's such a misconception. And I've actually talked with a lot of friends, like there's still friends of mine who are like, "Oh yes, they're eating a balanced diet." And my sister actually just took in this stray cat, and I'm really getting her onto her. The cat will eat anything because it was a stray. And she's, "But I don't really cook for myself." And she's going to try to do crock pot with her cat. So just really trying to get people onto that, because this cat, we know cats are fussy, but this cat will eat anything.
That's amazing. So it sounds like my cat Pepe. Pep actually would steal raw kale out of a bowl. He just was that kind of kitty. Pretty rare. But that's amazing. And it just, even if your friend ends up eating real food, eating the cat's food with her, maybe that would be a better bet too. So what's the best advice you could give somebody as far as specific dietary guidelines or herbal remedies that you would keep on hand if people are looking for a way to just start to improve their pet's health or keep that pet healthy?
So I would say to start, just really trying to keep fresh food in mind, thinking about what's good for us as human beings. Oh, can you hear me? You froze for me for a second. Can you hear
Sorry
me?
about that.
You froze on my end.
I'm back. Sorry. Yeah,
Okay,
I know.
no problem. So just really thinking of a fresh food diet, I feel, is the biggest takeaway. So thinking about what's good for us as human beings is also going to be good for our pets. So I would think about, if I can't start off, and I talked about this a little before, but if I can't start off with doing like the crock pot diet, like I'm not a cook, I really just can't do that right now, I'm too busy. I would try to find the highest quality, if I am feeding kibble, the highest quality one I can afford. So there are some good brands out there. One that I've used before is Carnivore. There are some other ones I'm sure that you could recommend. And starting off with some kind of a topper. So maybe using blueberries or broccoli or sardines or some other kind of protein that I could add some real food to the bowl. So I would start off with that for folks that aren't able to commit to a fully fresh food diet. But if you are able to, I really do encourage that they look into your crock pot diet, because I really think you can make it affordable for yourself. You can find proteins on sale, you can find veggies on sale. You don't have to always, I know people are thinking that everything has to be organic. There are lists of foods that you can look at, like the dirty 30 or whatever, the ones that you can buy that are
the dirty dozen and the clean 15, the environmental working group. Yeah.
Or frozen. I sometimes use frozen vegetables instead, because I could buy organic frozen veggies and those are going to be cheaper. Or organic frozen wild blueberries. I think blueberries are great. And I don't think cats like them. And cats obviously are going to be eating less carbs anyway. But yeah, that's another thing to keep in mind, thinking that our pets don't need tons of carbs. Like no one should really be feeding a milk bone. I don't think there's any benefit. I'm all for treats, and I do a lot of freeze-dried single protein treats with my dog, or air-dried protein treats, or pieces of veggies or fruit like blueberries, like I was saying, broccoli, but no one really needs to be giving a milk bone. So I would say no to things like that with the processed white flours.
Right on. And plus things that you're really not quite sure what's what.
the ingredients look sketchy.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's like highly processed corn middlings or whatever the heck they are. So, in your journey into this certification program, has that influenced your approach to pet care and well-being?
Yeah, so another thing I was thinking of in terms of just not just diet, like thinking about the emotional impacts on our animals and being mindful and really trying to get out there and spend time with them, quality time. And I know you've talked about this before too, exercising with them, giving them a job to do, like enrichment activities. Because I think when we're thinking about, and also taking care of ourselves, and I know you talk a lot about that in the course, when we take care and prioritize our own self care, there's going to be implications for our pets. And we know that the power of the mind is so important. So I don't know exactly how it works with pets. I just know that for me as a person, I've done a lot of like mind body work and it's helped me personally. So I would think with our pets, if our stress level is down, if we're taking care of ourselves, that's only going to affect and impact our pets. And then again, making sure that they have things to do and that they have purpose. And those things, aside from diet, are also going to impact them and benefit them in their longevity.
Right on. And that's the absolute truth. I think that our pets are really our mirrors. And when we are out of balance and in chaos, I think that's a lot of what ends up happening for these guys is that they're just they can't help but feel that energy of fear, of anxiety, of discomfort, and respond to that because they are energetic beings. So good on you for figuring that out and taking care of yourself as well
I'm
and
working on it.
spending
Like you said
time.
before about yourself, work in progress.
It's all you can do is just a little better each day and stick to the plan that where you're doing some sort of mind body connection, connecting to the planet, connecting to Charlotte, and connecting to all the animals around us. Because if we stay disconnected, then our chances of healing of staying healthy, I think, go way, way down. So
Agree.
good on you for figuring that one out. And what are the biggest, I think you've said most of this already, but about what the biggest takeaways from the program were? You've talked about the food, the self care, the looking for options. Anything else we missed?
So from the program, you really do go into depth if anyone's interested in the program on all types of things that can go wrong and then all types of things that you can do to help things get better. So I would encourage people that are interested in the program, you really dive deep into all the different systems of the body and then also talk about the emotions and the Chinese medicine aspect of it. I'm still learning, but that's also been something that I didn't really think about. I had done acupuncture. I had gotten acupuncture myself years ago and I saw some benefits to it. So it's something that's a piece that I'm working on more to really incorporate that. But I think that was another big takeaway for me and thinking about, oh, wow, we can actually use this with our pets too.
Right on. Cool. And what's the folks that you've supported? What's one of the biggest wins you've had for one of the?
Say most of my clients have been like friends and family so far because I'm still got a full-time gig teaching and I'm slowly diving into this more with trying to find other clients. But I would say the main thing would be trying to get more people on a fresh food diet, which I've been successful in promoting that with a lot of people. One of my clients slash friend, her pet was overweight and she switched him over to Crock Pet and he's lost some weight. So that's been a real win because he was definitely not doing so well. And he's a younger dog, like about 3, 4 years old. So trying to promote him, promote longevity and success for him in the long run. And then also prioritizing like dental health with my brother and his dogs. A couple of them had teeth removed, so trying to get him on to some different supplements. One of them is teeth, which I know we talked about in a coaching call. He actually just bought that recently. So just little changes I'm seeing in the people around me. It's really been great to see things that they probably wouldn't have looked into if I hadn't done this program.
That's awesome. Super awesome. Cool. Let's do this. Let's take a look at some of the questions over in the holistic pet health group. See if we can help
Sure.
a few folks out. And I know you've got to jump off here in about 6 or 7 minutes. So Lillian, her pup cut her paw. That's a pretty gnarly little gash there.
Oh, wow.
And she's
Yeah.
got things bandaged up. So is this a place where you would use like a calendula
Yeah,
compress?
I was just thinking that right now, just to keep the wound clean, I would use that. You can buy, if you look up calendula salve, I think they even make one specifically for dogs. You could use that on it too. But if you don't have that, you could just brew the tea and use that as like a compress. And I think she said she's keeping it like covered, so I would definitely do that. Try to prevent the pet from
Yeah,
licking the paw. So maybe if you've got a real licker, you might want to use a cone.
yeah,
I don't love
exactly.
using those,
And this
but
is
sometimes you have to.
Yeah, and this is a situation where using like a liquid bandage or super glue would be pretty uncomfortable. So I think you're better off just tapping that thing down, keeping it clean, as you said, and then bandaging it to keep it down. Eventually, what's going to happen is this little piece of skin is dead and it will fall off. And if you've
Right.
done a great job at keeping this happy underneath, then it'll be more than halfway healed by the time that happens.
Mhm.
So all good stuff. It's crazy how these guys can do that to themselves.
Yeah, one quick
Yeah, and
thing
colloidal
too.
silver is another good option too.
Oh,
Sorry?
yes. Yeah, no, colloidal
Yes.
silver. Yeah, that's a good one too. But also thinking that I know I've seen dogs that have scraped their nose. What is it, that kennel nose thing, and they lose some of the black pigment. So I would suspect that the black pigment's also not going to come back right away. So that would be something maybe to, I could be wrong, but I know that's what
Right.
happens on the nose, right?
Absolutely. No, it'll look pale for a while until the skin completely closes back in. But
So I
yes,
know
this
that
is a
too, so not
great
freak out.
reminder to have yeah, exactly. But this is a great reminder to have a first aid kit at home and have some things pulled together because invariably something happens 7 p.m. on Saturday evening when emergency clinics are the only thing that's open, they're backed up, and many things you can do to take care of things at home.
Yeah, I do have the liquid bandage. I've used it before actually for my neighbor's dog. He had a gash on his, like above his paw. So it was an area that you could use the liquid bandage, but you're right on the paw right there. That's going to be tough.
Right on. Let's see. Archer is a Great Pyrenees. So, Angela, welcome. Diagnosed with liver disease and not good.
Mm,
Um,
rapidly losing weight. Okay.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Hmm.
Any suggestions for this guy?
I know milk thistle, but I would need to know a little bit more about the prognosis and what stage he's in. I know milk thistle we use to detoxify the liver, and that's a natural supplement that can be given. But I'd be concerned. I feel like I would need to know the prognosis before I really, and the test results.
Yeah, and I think based on what she's saying that the prognosis was not good, it sounds like
Oh,
there's
she does
some
say
very
milk thistle.
advanced,
Yeah. Sorry, I
yeah,
didn't even read. She does say
very
she's able
advanced
to milk
disease.
thistle.
It's a tiny print on the screen, and I have the benefit of
Mhm.
being able to look to the full thing. But it's a tough one, and so the difficulty is that the higher the protein and the fat in the diet, the more irritated the liver becomes, and so the most you can do is really keep these guys eating as best as you can. I think CBD is going to be super important. And this is difficult too because a lot of these guys, they just don't feel good and they stop eating because they're nauseous. So keep the diet modified. There's a version of the crock-pot diet that we
Yeah.
have for liver disease, but again, it's super low in animal protein just because the liver's not processing it well. One of the other things that can be useful is something called lactulose, which is a it's actually a laxative, but it helps to adsorb some of the toxins that the
Hmm.
liver's not getting rid of. And that's, I think, probably a prescription product. And hopefully your vet's got you some of that. That does seem to help. And then the other thing would be some sort of an adsorbent, like activated charcoal or
Right.
fulvic acid, humic acid, C60. And then
Hmm.
lastly, because many, if you're using prednisone, there's some sort of inflammatory process. This is where pulsed electromagnetic frequency devices can be super. We wish Arthur the best. This sounds like a
Yeah,
really rotten hand of cards for him.
I know.
Let's see what we got going on here. Got a bunch of new folks.
I feel like if you're recommending a dry food, I would go with something air dried, or I guess it depends what you can afford, or freeze dried. I would go with one of those as opposed to a high processed kibble because it's heated to those high temperatures.
Right on.
So I know one I used a while ago was Spot and Tango. It's like a subscription company. It was okay. I didn't love it because it does have it's a little higher on the barley, even though I think they changed their
Hmm.
formula recently. But there are different ones out there. But I would definitely, there's one Sundays for dogs that I've heard good things about. But if I'm going to try a dry food, that's what I would go with.
Right on. And Josh, I'd really encourage you to at least get some vegetables in there. So
Mm,
if you do nothing more than go get Normandy blend frozen vegetables and cook a handful and throw that and the water you've cooked it in on top of the dry food, you're going to help tremendously because unfortunately the dry or freeze dried or air dried is dry and the kidneys
exactly.
need more fluid. And so that's going to
Hmm.
be the number one thing to do. I think that many dogs have, if they've got moderate numbers, many dogs and many cats that have gone on cooked food, we see those values come down. And does that mean
Yeah,
that the kidneys are all better? No, but they're in a much better shape than they were. Check that out.
definitely.
Check out the crock pet diet. Yeah. And then check out quercetin too.
Yeah, because I see skin allergies, and you figure your pet's eating dry food, they're not getting enough moisture. Definitely rehydrating the
Right
food.
on.
You'll even see that on some packages of freeze-dried foods. I've seen that recently, that you should rehydrate the food in water. I know some people like bone broth. I don't use it much, but I agree with what you said. Just like water and vegetables is going to be beneficial.
Right. Right on. Cool. Raw feeding book. Mona, that's not really in my wheelhouse. Have you had experience with raw food
Only
at
really
all? Or?
just freeze-dried types of treats and things like that, because I feel that's basically all I've done.
Okay. Yeah.
So
So I
I've
think
always been a little
there's,
afraid of it myself. And I think that it's really,
right
personally, I
on.
don't think it's really necessary. I think if you're eating real food, it's real food. I don't think, and think about human beings as well. Long ago, we probably were eating some raw food. I think I actually read a study that we were like cutting our food into tiny pieces before we had fire. But we don't eat raw food anymore. But yeah, the only thing I've really done has
No.
been like the freeze dried type stuff for like with training treats and things like that.
Right on. Yeah. I would encourage you to look at cooked as an alternative for multiple reasons. And great. Welcome, Ashley. Adorable pups. Looks like you're in some snow. And definitely look at Crockpet to start doing home cooked diets. It's really easy. You can do it in batches, all of that good stuff. Let's
Yeah,
see,
definitely.
Brianna. Yeah, and that's the thing. The other that makes things life a lot easier if you can cook up. Like when my wife and I first met, we had 5 dogs and 5 cats, and we could knock out a month's worth of food in about 4 hours. Now, granted, we
Mhm.
did have a freezer to put it all in, but it's something that can get done pretty quickly. And Brianna, welcome. Ah, crikey, 8-month-old Bernie that's been diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma. Yeah, and I think Wei Qi Booster and Stasis Breaker are good options.
Does she have CBD down there? Because I know if you go on CBD Dog Health, like I believe there's a case with lymphoma where the founder, Angela Ardolino, had some success using CBD.
Yeah, I would definitely go with, yeah, high doses
Well, she put the
of
mushrooms in there too. Yeah, so I know that her site has.
Heal. Yeah, high doses of Heal, high doses of Vitality, and we do have, and this is the problem, is that if she's not eating a lot of supplements, and that's the issue, is that I think you've got to really
Uh,
focus on keeping her eating. And Panicure or fenbendazole, there is a protocol based on the Tippins protocol that the coaches know, but I think you really need to work with somebody that knows that. But you can
mhm.
reach out to our holistic pet health coaches and they can go through that with you. And the other thing I used to do in practice is something called metronomic chemotherapy. And what that
Hmm.
means is using a chemotherapeutic drug, but at a very low dose for a long period of time. And so I had a standard poodle that had a lymphoma in her cervical spine, and we kept Coco happy and at a high quality of life for 22 months. So it is
Wow.
possible. Yeah. And
I hate to cut you short, but I actually
deworming
do have to go
cats.
back.
Understood. I know you had a
So
hard
sorry.
time limit. So yeah, no worries. So Elena, thank you so much for joining today. And you all go check out the link there, check out Elena's site and get
Thank
in
you.
contact with her because she's got a wealth of knowledge. And thanks for all that you do. And I'll answer a couple of more questions here. So take good care and we'll talk soon. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, with pleasure. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. Let's see. So I think we may have to answer this in the stream. All right, I'm going to jump to. All right, y'all, I'm going to end things up and I'll answer a couple more questions. So actually, since she was able to jump off, we'll do this. So Deborah, I would start with the amount that you're currently feeding and then work down or up to whatever it is you need to keep weight on him. But a good general rule of thumb is what you're currently feeding. And let's see if we've got anything else here. Great. I think that's pretty much it. So dewormer, I think you need to, if you've got a kitty that's got some worms, there's a couple of products. We do love the Crazy Cat Ladies stuff. And Jane, this is a great question. So if we look at these ingredients, we've got turkey, we've got chicken, and then we've got sweet potato, whitefish meal, peas, chickpeas, herring, lentils. So we've got a lot of grains in here. And that's going to make it one of these types of grain-free diets that has the potential to limit the absorption of minerals and nutrients, i.e. taurine. So I would look at, again, I think reading the labels and making sure that you've got the right thing for your dog. The other problem is that's got a lot of different protein ingredients, and that can create some food sensitivities. And then if your dog starts having problems, you don't know which is which. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bid you adieu. Hope that you have had a marvelous start to your new year, and we will see you next week.